Commissioner and Vice Chair Kinsky brought up the item for this. You had the floor. Um, there was a post in social media in this past month that is dealing with ATSDR, which I had no idea what that stood for. And I would like to ask our executive director if he wants to address this issue because it is controversial, and I want to make sure that the facts are out there to our public.
Well, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Commissioner Kaczynski. So the ATSDR is the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. It's the Department of Health and Human Services. And I would just like to say, and of course, this is a board discussion item, so I'll just give you some background here and see where the discussion goes. This basically stems from a petition from one of our customers in the Seguasa service area that petitioned the ATSDR to evaluate the quality of the drinking water provided by the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority and whether contaminants in the water might be related to harmful health effects, including higher cancer rates for the area. Those concerns have been heightened by the discovery of PFAS in the drinking water, and there was also a request for information for the ATSDR to advise on whether residents should install reverse osmosis filtration systems. So basically looking at some water filters. So again, this request was made from the customer of Seguasa to the ATSDR December 15th of 2023. So this is not 2024, this is 2023, this information was submitted. Some of you may remember big headlines in the newspaper about this petition being submitted. I want you to know that on December 30th, 2024, so just at the close basically of the calendar year 2024, I received a copy of a letter from the ATSDR basically to the petitioner, which basically provided information and their response. Now, I did forward a copy of that letter to all the board members, and we've also printed a copy for you here this evening. So one of the things I would like to point out, I don't want to read the 5-page report to you, but the information's here for discussion. But I would like to point out to you on page 2 of the report the conclusions by the ATSDR, and that is we reviewed Seguasa's drinking water quality reports, which are public reports that we publish every year. We're required to do that for years 2018 through 2023. The reports revealed no violations of drinking water standards for non-PFAS chemicals for the years 2018 through 2023. Therefore, ATSDR will not conduct further evaluation of non-PFAS chemicals in Seguasa's drinking water at this time. The ATSDR also goes on to outline PFAS in drinking water and the fact that the ATSDR did not evaluate or discuss PFAS recently. And there's also some background on some facts about the EPA's final rule and requirements. And we are following the rules and the requirements by the EPA. I think the board is very aware of that in the public in terms of the amount of time that we have to come into compliance with PFAS mitigation of our water supply. And just a reminder that PFAS is all over the place. This is not just a Seguasa drinking water issue. The board has had much discussion about that. So those are just some of the highlights and some background on the topic. And of course, I'd like to just provide it back to or throw it back to the board for any discussion you would like on that. Again, you do have a copy of the letter that was provided to me at the end of December.
So, Mr. Schroyer, wasn't Seguasa required to test for PFAS before this new directive came out and we were always in compliance?
So, yes, so Seguasa has been providing PFAS information on our state reports to show the state how we were with our values in comparison to the maximum contaminant levels. And as the board is aware and the public is aware, the EPA made changes several years ago with those values, those maximum contaminant levels, and they reduced those. So at one point in time, Seguasa was well within range of what those values were, was not exceeding that. And then the rules changed, basically, and went lower than what we were providing. And it wasn't just specific to Seguasa, but to all drinking water agencies. And therefore, we're still looking towards compliance in 5 years, which is now 2029, to remove the PFAS from our drinking water. So we've always provided those values. And in fact, we had a special report a couple of years ago where we hired a consulting firm and a testing firm to come in and draw some samples out of our drinking water source at the lake, and also the NCDEQ did some testing for us. So the board is very aware of that and what we're doing. I think the board is also aware of the public about the $500,000 grant that we received to do the PFAS pilot study at our water plant, which is currently ongoing. And that testing should wrap up in April or May of this year. And that is providing the foundation for what technologies we will use to design and then construct to remove the PFAS from our drinking water. So all that is going on presently to meet these guidelines and these deadlines by the EPA addressing drinking water and PFAS.
So I know that you were new here in to the area, but do you know if it was required to test for PFAS before Seguasa was formed? So what I want to know is, when Creedmoor Water was in existence, how far back did they start testing for PFAS? Was there testing done years ago?
That's a great question. That's information I don't have in front of me. I know that through research that PFAS has been an issue in North Carolina since about 1980. So I do not know, and Seguasa was formed in 2005. So I'm not sure what the city of Creedmoor may have been doing at that time period for PFAS evaluation. As the board recognizes, we get information not annually, but in a period of time where there's new requirements, basically for a water permit. So I would have to go back and do some research, try to find any of that information relative to that, and I don't have that presently.
So the reason for that question was to say that, like you said, this is not a new Seguasa problem. This is a problem that's been out there for a while, and it's just the standards that have brought it forward for everybody to really be alerted about what it is.
That is correct. And now there's.
I want to make sure I understand it.
Very good.
So I want to piggyback on what you said, and I appreciate Scott Troy, our executive director's statements on that, and Commissioner Kaczynski from Creedmoor bringing it out. As the system is a merged system, and we had Lake Rogers as the primary drinking water source for Creedmoor up until about, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 2015-ish. The plant was on and off from 1939 until the mid 20, I don't know how to say this, 2010, 15, 16-ish, where the water plant in Creedmoor is still functioning. But the Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry in Atlanta, Georgia, which is commonly known with the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, also did a report on Seguasa water back in March of 17 when we were dealing with some of the THHM, trimethylacetic acid disinfectant byproduct, chloramine cancer issues. And at that point in time, that agency basically reported to the citizen who contacted this agency, which I'm thankful for, that somebody's checking behind us, because it kind of lends credence to what we're doing here. Our lifestyle in Granville County with tobacco use and fat content and other lifestyle things was the primary factor in cancerous causing agents. And I think that the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry intimated, as well as our own independent studies that we did here, that a lot of the issues that we face here was not drinking water related. And that, now with PFAS, the latest, greatest of sins of the past have come forward to haunt us. I think that we've realized that we're fat. Our dietary incomes and all the other things that we do in life are the result of our cancerous culture. And it's not the drinking water. At least we hope and pray that it's not drinking water. This kind of adds a little bit to the fact that, you know, we're not poisoning people on a daily basis with the water that we sell at Sigwasa. And that, you know, there are things that are in the water, surface water, reservoir, from a smell perspective, or it's surface water. It smells like fish. It has algae in it. The federal government, state government have shown through these queries that the water, though may not be satisfying to the palate of some of our customers, is not unsafe, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Safe Water Drinking Water Act. Unsafe to drink. So I'm glad that folks are on point in our community, and think to send notice to the ATSDR. But I think this on the second report front shows in two different reports that we're doing what we need to do, and we're proactive. I think you mentioned at the top of our thing that we are currently way ahead of schedule, actively trying to figure out how to get PFAS, which we did not cause, out of our water. Yeah. And microplastics is next. It's just
Okay. The EPA recommendations or the EPA standards tell us that we have to test in parts per trillion. When we first started testing, there was only a very few labs in the country that could test in parts per trillion. They just didn't have the equipment to test that low. 10 years ago, it was hard to test in parts per billion, much less parts per trillion. So the reason PFAS has probably never shown up before, even if it was here, it was because it was not at a measurable state. It was so low that you couldn't measure it. Now that we have the technology, and it's expanded over the last 4 or 5 years, you've got labs here in the state now that can measure in parts per trillion. And whereas 4 or 5 years ago, you had to send it out of state for testing. You could you pull your sample, and you had to ship it out of state. And we didn't, and probably still don't have the technology here to actually do the sampling. We have to hire people to do the sampling because of the type of equipment you have to use. You can't use just a sample cup. You can't collect it with your hand. You have to have specialized equipment that will not contaminate the sample. Because parts per trillion, as best I remember, it was described as a grain of sand in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's what you're measuring. And that's how fine a line we're working with here. So, we just need to keep in mind that it's probably been around for a long time. It just wasn't measurable with the equipment that was used to measure years ago. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, not to go down a different trail here, but, like, our executive director said, we're not the only one concerned about PFAS. I know several years ago, I think, Wilmington had issues, And I think it's from companies that had, from towns and counties that had plants, maybe using those chemical byproducts, probably raised the issue first. And I just think that we have to recognize that I'm grateful that the detection is no more than that. Not that I'm happy with it, I want it to be at below, but we could have a much more challenge than we do today. So I'm looking forward to some future updates on it. But I think we did well to get this information, and it sounds pretty good, and we're doing what we need to do. We're going by the standards.
Yeah, that, and we have engineering firms working on it as we speak.
That's correct.
They've been working on it for a while. In fact, they're running a pilot plant now, testing
Yes,
water plant.
last fall, the board authorized the engineering firm CDM Smith to utilize the $500,000 grant that we received from the state to actually start that pilot project. I believe that pilot project started in October of last year, and we anticipate about a 6 or 7 month run on that. So we'll be getting data. We're getting data from it now. So we have that analysis. We're starting to work towards some solutions. The board will get updates on that as soon as we conclude the testing. Also, there will be a final report that will be public and presented to the board on the recommendations for the technologies that we're going to be using. Additionally, in order to meet the timetables in front of us, which is 2029, here we are in 2025, so we're on the countdown already. So is everyone else. So there's a lot of competition out there to do this, but we are competing with some of our larger water supply sources out there as well. The board is also going to be looking at possibly design build contracts later this summer to look at the actual cost of this construction. As I've relayed to the board over the last couple of years, PFAS reduction in our drinking water is very expensive based on the technologies. And I think the last grant that we put in for last year, we're putting in another grant application this year. I think that in order to treat our total licensed amount basically to operate is anywhere from $20 to $25 million at this time to remove the PFAS out of the drinking water supply. So that's in front of us yet for discussion within the next several months, because we will have to start construction on that sooner than later to meet those timelines.
From an economy of scale perspective, I mentioned at my last commissioner meeting in the Granville County Commissioners that there's been a grant awarded to some folks out of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte that have come up with a new filter process for PFAS for residential use. And that it's, they're in competition right now to figure out how to get it done and make it scalable and present it to the public so they can utilize it. And I would hope that people would take their personal responsibility and look out for themselves and take care of it in their own household. We're doing the best we can. We meet or exceed all current regulations that have been put forth by the state and the federal government here at SIGWASA. And I'm very proud to serve on this board that meets and exceeds all federal and state guidelines. And if people choose in their personal life to go above and beyond what is set by the federal and state government, just like we do in our lives for everything else, if you want to exceed the standards, go you.
Anyone else have anything to say on this topic? Yes.
Just a note, Mr. Chair and Board, we of course will make this information available on our website for the public as well. Everything that we talked about this evening, if it isn't already there, we'll ensure that after this meeting it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.